Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Coffee Break, and welcome back to game number 3 between SlayersMMA, who is spawning on the bottom right side here on ESL Antigua Shipyard, and LiquidZenio spawning on the top left side. Cross position, I believe, is forced in this version, and not completely certain, but fairly sure. And we have seen just an absolutely explosive matchup out of these two players so far. MMA up 2-0 in this best of 5 series. I previously did think it was a best of 3. Going through, seeing the number of games I have has proven me otherwise. My bad, folks. And I really need to check up and stay a little bit more current on these tournaments so I actually know what their series are like. I feel kind of bad. This definitely is not the first time I've made the mistake, but hopefully it'll be the last. Who knows? Whoa! LiquidZenio has done a great job so far in this series. I've loved the playstyle we've seen out of him, which is just aggressively expanding. Really aggressively expanding. Just keeps on trying to force that point down at SlayersMMA's throat. But so far it hasn't been enough, because MMA apparently has a gigantic throat and is able to just shove Marines and tanks down back at LiquidZenio, and always has been able to eventually break LiquidZenio, and that generally has happened when Zenio's army gets cut in half and he has to sacrifice his third or his natural rather than a fourth or a fifth base. And MMA has just shown a great standing so far in this game, and really is showing that he lives up to his name as a Terran Titan, as has LiquidZenio as a Zerg player, however, because holding your own against SlayersMMA is a huge deal. I mean, MMA is extremely good. Extremely good. Some would say one of the best players in the world. Once again, we do have this 1-Rax expansion coming out of SlayersMMA. This quick double gas. Last game he did use it to go ahead and get Banshees out onto the field, which didn't prove to be a huge problem for Zenio, but Zenio did, of course, have to deal with that. And that wasn't too much of a problem for Zenio, because he commonly has more than just enough queens for his hatcheries, meaning extra queens to spread the creep and spread the love. So Zenio really didn't have a problem with it last game, and if MMA does decide to do the same thing this game, I don't feel like he'll have a problem with it this game. But it does look like it is entirely a possible solution to this game, a possible build to this game, as we are seeing the same general opening here. We have the barracks with the reactor, factory going right down next to it, but this is a fairly general opener itself, and really the game is still wide open for SlayersMMA. And once again, queens number 3 and 4 coming out fairly quickly here. I would like to see Zenio take a quick third base on this map, as it is very easy to defend, and not even any rocks defending that. And the reason I say that is because the last 2 games he's been doing this 2 base into defensive 3 base and then aggressively expanding after that. And I feel like a little bit of a mix-up in the early game would be a good way to try to find some new way to deal with MMA. And indeed, we are seeing the starport going down next to this barracks. Will we see the tech lab? Dun 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 dun. Tech lab! Oh dang. I was really hoping I'd get that, timing just perfect, and then I would seem just like a clairvoyant or something there. And there we go. Now the tech lab is going down. But I would like to see just a little bit of a switch up by Zenio in this early game, as MMA's style obviously just so strong. It's almost like the Reapers of Mass Effect 3. You can't beat them conventionally. You can't beat MMA conventionally and just a straight up macro game. He's just too good for that, I feel. And indeed is throwing that starport down onto that tech lab, and probably going to be following that up with a Banshee, which is exactly what we are seeing here. So the same opening coming out of SlayersMMA in game number 3 here. 2 aliens in position to stop any sort of creep spread and any sort of attempt to take a quick third base. Zenio going to have to get metabolic boost there, which is what he's doing now, or some roaches onto the field to deal with these Hellions. And in the meantime is going to need these extra queens to deal with the Banshees, which he might be able to spot with these Overlords depending on the path the Banshees take. If they're trying to be sneaky and run around the sides of the map, he will be spotted. However, considering MMA does currently have vision across the middle of the map, I would suspect that is where the Banshees are going to be going. Because Zenio obviously is not going to be able to have control of this tower because these Hellions are out on the field keeping a nice contain, and even has a patrol pattern going on here just for fun, I would assume. Is a little bit of a difference in this game in the fact that the Banshees will be getting that cloaking technology, going to make them a little bit more difficult to kill. And once these Banshees are seen, Zenio is going to need to have a very fast reaction, getting that evolution chamber down to get spore crawlers out. Or a lair right now wouldn't be a bad idea either. And actually, we are having the lair already finishing up, so we are going to be able to have overlords morphing into overseers, which will help quite a bit. Zenio actually sneaking expansion over on the top right side here, which I do not think has been scouted out, because Zenio can do that because he is awesome. And with this spine crawler going down on the low ground here, Zenio will also be able to push out with his creep a little bit. This is a really nice positioning by Zenio, just being able to get just enough creep down this ramp to go ahead and get the spine crawler in position. 4 Hellions are retreating back to the middle of the map. And I wouldn't be surprised to see the Banshees somewhere around here. Where are they? There they are, up in the main base, doing a little bit of harassment to this drone line. 2 Banshees can one-shot drones. However, the Overseer is on the field, as well as 4 Queens to defend against it. Banshees could deny this 3rd base, though, if they do find out about it. And instead, they're just going to fall back for the moment, as they do not have the firepower needed to do any sort of real damage against Zenio, who already actually has spore crawlers going up in his mineral lines. Well played by Zenio in that defense against MMA. Is going to be able to deny this 4th base, however, I think, with these Banshees. But no, actually, with a little bit of careless control, going to lose a Banshee there. And with these Zerglings on the field, going to be able to deny these Hellions from really doing any damage. And does now have this 3rd base on the top right finished. I wouldn't say established, as there's really nothing there to defend against it. And unfortunately for Zenio, the creep has not spread out far enough to the point where he can easily defend against the Banshee over at this 4th base. But not going to be a big deal too much, I don't think, as the Queens are in a fairly decent position to be able to defend against this, and are indeed going to be creeping up in this general direction. But enough about Zenio. Over back in MMA's base, we do have the reactor down on that starport now, getting double medevac production going on. Lots and lots of Marines. We do have a combat shield and stim pack already finished up. A reactor on 1 barracks, just pumping out Marines and going eventually into this siege tech. A pretty easy transition coming from where he was. Actually, a drop on the top right, going to be able to take out this hatchery, as there's nothing there to defend against that right now. So Marine tank, the usual transition, the transition MMA has done every game, and the transition that he feels comfortable with. The only difference this game, however, Zenio does have a slight supply lead, which is something that he has not been able to boast in the previous games, and actually is having 4 bases up right now. Probably going to be losing this base, unfortunately for him, as I don't think his forces can plausibly get over far enough across the map to defend against that. We are going to be having a little bit of engagement in the middle of the map here. Zergling's not quite able to get surrounded on that army, as the army had fairly decent positioning on that ramp, and I just don't think there were enough Zerglings to do that. Mutalisk going to be flying over to the top right to be able to take out that drop. However, too late, as that hatchery did already fall. But MMA's main army, which is going to be only slightly bigger than his drop, is going to be pushing up against the front of Zenio's base. Mutalisk is going to be swooping down into the 3rd base area. Might be able to take out a lot of SCVs if they so desire, and that is going to be what they desire. A lot of SCVs going down there, mopping up a few extra Marines as well, but stemmed Marines so good against Mutalisk. Mutalisk prevailing, but losing a few of their numbers. But what is MMA going to do? Well, he's just going to keep pumping out Marines to deal with these Mutalisks, and he's doing a great job of it. Mutalisk is going to be able to harass this 3rd base, and in the meantime, MMA going to be dropping up into the 3rd base of Zenio, going to be putting a little pressure on there. Mutalisk not quite able to mop up this 3rd base so far. Too many Marines on the map, might actually end up losing this Mutalisk if he's not careful. Losing quite a few Mutalisks, but it does look like he's barely going to triumph over those Marines there. Going to have a little bit more control over that 3rd base. In the meantime, Zenio's 3rd base going to be getting damaged, but not taken out, I believe, as there's going to be just enough firepower to be able to mop that up. A lot of mules being dropped at this third base for MMA because the Marines are in position to deal with the mutalists. A lot of mutalists did go down, but comparable numbers for each player killed in that workers tab. Zenio again just a little bit ahead in this game, and it's really anybody's game at this point in time. Third, fourth base are established. Fifth base up and running, not quite established, as once again nothing there to defend. But Zenio has a great positioning in the middle of the map, and oh man, that was a good stretch. Ever have one of those stretches that just needs to come out and then you do it and it feels amazing? That is exactly what just happened. Zenio getting this round with those Zerglings, going to allow the Banelings to get on top of the Marines, loses all the siege tanks, loses all the Marines, and even a couple of medevacs due to the increasing mutalist numbers. Infestation Pit coming down onto the field. Great combination to go with that Zergling Baneling mutalist, as you can hold the Marines in position with fungal growth and then clean up everything else. Mutalist going to fly up just to be able to take out this one Marine that was killing off a lone extractor just because he can. And I really feel like Zenio has a good jump on this game. He's not ahead by any means. I mean, I guess his economy is technically a little bit stronger, but the big thing is normally by this point he's been behind. And right now he's keeping up with his own against MMA, who is almost on 3-3 upgrades already, going towards that 3-3, getting Thors out on the field. My goodness, MMA right on top of this game, dropping over into this fifth base for Zenio, probably going to be able to clean it up unless the mutalist hit here in time, which, stimming up, doesn't look like Zenio quite wanted to engage that, but he's going to be able to take that out very, very quickly in the middle of the map. Zerglings and Banelings going to be engaging Marine Siege Tank Thor forces, deciding not to fully engage that and going to just keep running away here. Loses a couple quick Banelings here, but could not afford to engage that army without Mutalisk support. And now that the Mutalists are here, still not going to engage the army, just going to kind of fly away and put a little bit of pressure on in the main base. Needs to make sure to take out this missile turret fairly quickly, and that is exactly what he's going to be doing. MMA out of position to defend against this, as all of his Marine forces, I guess only a handful of his Marine forces were in the middle of the map, but he is going to force MMA to multitask here, which is always a nice little thing to make your opponent do. Greater Spire coming onto the field, as well as Corruptors, and Zenio caught a little bit out of position there, losing a few extra Banelings once again, but neither player really able to mop up their opponent's army right now, which is going to become increasingly frustrating for both players. MMA trying to find a good engagement angle, and it doesn't quite have it, as Zenio just came up behind him and was able to clean up those Marine forces. However, all the Zerglings and Banelings have been cleaned up. Mutalists are all that remain on the field for Zenio at the moment. Composition wise, both players have a nice counter to each other, which sounds counterintuitive, but Zergling Baneling Mutalist does soft counter Siege Tank Marine, and Siege Tank Marine Thor does soft counter Zergling Baneling Mutalist. So it's a great little dynamic that we have going on in this game. Marines once again being dropped over in the fifth base to go ahead and take that out, not letting Zenio ramp up his economy too much. And MMA just has such a great line in the middle of this map. Even has a center tower here to be able to detect what's going on, and that's going to be able to detect every single ground path on this map. Beautiful center tower positioning. My voice is starting to get hoarse from casting these games because they've been just so good. Broodlords are coming onto the field now. That's going to be a great supplement to Zenio's army, as Terrans are having a little bit of problems dealing with those right now. With the recent Ghost nerf, we do have Vikings coming onto the field, though, to be able to do a little bit of damage. We will see if that's going to be enough for MMA, which both players are maxed out right now. What it's going to come down to is who can remacro their army better. MMA doing a good job of making sure that he's the one to be able to do it. This expansion over here has been cleaned up by MMA. I'm surprised we have not seen a drop over at this fourth base. Engagement going on in the middle of the map. Zergling's not quite able to get this round on those Marines, so the Baneling's not able to get on top of them. Broodlords have begun engaging this battle, however. Zergling, Baneling, Mutalisk, Broodlord, and Fester. How's that for an army composition against Marine Tank Thor? Both players have a nice composition to kill the other. It's going to be completely about positioning at this point. No Vikings are on the field quite yet, however, and I feel like that is a very important point to make. And MMA just, I don't know if he's trying to find a base up here, or if he's looking for a good way to attack this opponent's army. However, he is on a nice little position there. A couple of C-tanks sieging up could potentially deal with Zerglings on the low ground. Needs to be careful with these Broodlords, however. One Transfuse going down on top of that Overlord. I thought I saw a Transfuse. I do not see a Queen, however. And now MMA actually has only done himself in by backing himself into a corner. Going to need to lift off into these medevacs to get away. But I don't know if he's even going to be willing to do that. Broodlord's actually engaging without the consent of the rest of the army. Now going to finally be falling back and attacking the 4th base of MMA. In the meantime, MMA going to be attacking the 3rd base of Zenio. And it does look like that planetary fortress in the middle of the map is going to fall. However, it does also look like Zenio's 3rd base is going to fall, as well as probably this 5th base up top here. Indeed, the 3rd base does fall, and the 4th base may go down as well. Zenio trying to get back in position to defend against this, but will it be enough on time? I don't know. It's going to be kind of a close call. Sting Marines trying to take on this hatchery, now focusing down drones instead. Beautiful funk growth does go down on top of those Marines, weakening them up. And indeed, this 4th base is going to stand for the moment. MMA going to fall back away from this 3rd base. And I would not be surprised to see him try to establish another base. And there it is, the 4th base going up along the right side, which is where his army is. But there's not much of an army left to speak of right now. Could actually take down these swords with these Broodlords, I feel. But instead going to fall back with the Broodlords, expand in the middle of the map. Both players trying to find a hole in their opponent's defenses. Neither player finding that chink in the armor quite yet. Lifting up a siege tank by accident. I don't know if that was on purpose. But it does look like a huge engagement by Zenio here. Going to be able to mop up quite a few of the Marines with these Broodlords in the back of the army as well. Going to be able to do major damage here. But there are still a lot of Marines left on the field. Those Banelings need to get those hits. And one hit does go down, weakens quite a few of the Marines. Marines are going to eventually get away, but at what cost? He's lost so many Marines in that last engagement. 131 to 131 supply on the dot for a moment there. Both players trying to remacro their armies. It's so close to the game at this point. Again, it can really go either way. One big thing to point out, 3-3 upgrades for MMA. And I selected an automaton instead of a Zergling. 2-2 for Zenio. So a slight upgrade advantage does go over to MMA. And I feel like in TvZ, more than any other matchups, upgrades matter so much. Able to pick off some reinforcing SCVs there, not reinforcing, some SCVs that we're going to be mining from this expansion. This order command, I would not advise a landing for it at all, as it is in a hot zone with all of these units flying around, but it's gets aborted at the last second there. Zenio trying to be aggressive here, trying to push out across the map. I don't know if he has the forces for it, however. There are Vikings on the field to try to deal with these Broodlords, however, too many corruptors for those Vikings. Funk growth does go down top of Marines and Sea Tanks, but it looks like those Broodlords caught a little bit out of position now. So many Marines on the field going to be able to start picking those off. Corruptors no use against those Marines. And now 2 Broodlords have fallen. Looks like 3, 4, and 5, and 6 are all going to go down as well. And suddenly the tide's turning over into MMA's favor as the entire army for Zenio was just slaughtered right there. No more Broodlords are in the air for Zenio at this point in time. There are a few Banelings and Zerglings out onto the field, but will it be enough to contend with this Marine tank ball out of MMA? I don't know. I would love to see yet another drop out of MMA to go ahead and assault this 3rd base over here while he pushes across the middle of the map. Could definitely take down this middle expansion if he so desired, I feel. A couple more Broodlords are coming onto the field. A lot of Zerglings, a few Banelings being morphed in as well. A couple of Spine Crawlers are over here to defend this base, but I don't know if it's going to be enough. There are a lot of Marines here, but with that stim up, they're actually getting one-shotted by these Spine Crawlers, trying to focus fire down that hatchery, and they are no, my goodness, not going to get it. Living with only 88 health. That might go down at a later date. But Zenio's army once again getting mopped up. Broodlord just getting destroyed as they were left alone to the devices of the Marines, which is a Gauss rifle, which unfortunately is very good against everything, especially when stemmed up. And Zenio needs to find some way to engage his army, otherwise he's just going to lose this expansion. And at this point, he cannot afford to lose it, because if he loses this expansion, his 4th base up top here is going to fall, as well as he will not have anything left in position to defend against us. But the siege tank lines, so good by MMA. Zenio having a problem breaking them. One Thor does remain on the field. A Broodlord with only 8 health was trying to contest it. And, oh, he is going to live for the moment, but finally going down due to just a single Marine firing away at it. and it does look like a drop was able to clean up this 58th. A Thor drop of all things, going to try to take out this spawning pool as well, taking it down very, very quickly, doing 66 damage a pop. In the meantime, going to be assaulting this middle base as well. Will there be enough for Zenio to defend? There isn't. The entire force of MMA here, as there are a few units spread out across the map. However, MMA does have to fall back just a little bit. Zergling Baneling a little bit too strong right now, but Baneling trying to roll in, but can't quite decide if he wants to engage this army or not. It does look like the Thor in the main base was cleaned up by a handful of Zerglings, but still not able to clean up the middle of this map. Thor is still engaging the rest of the army. Vikings trying to take out Broodlords as well. Corruptors are in position to defend against that. But Siege Tanks doing so much damage versus his entire army. Finally able to take out one Siege Tank. And now those Siege Tanks are sieged up. This is going to be the moment for Zenio to push in and be able to force MMA back. But we do have more Marines coming up along the top side here. Just to kind of clean up a little unit here and a little bit of units there. Not all that many ground forces for Zenio right now. You cannot live on Broodlords alone, just like you cannot live on bread alone, but you can live on potatoes for the longest amount of time. Fun fact, only 160 supplied to the 118 of MMA. Very close game so far. 52 to 44 Harvesters, so a little bit more of an army advantage. Just go over to MMA. But does he have the reproduction capabilities with mules? I would say yes. Zenio does look like he knows about this this fourth base of MMA. Now, going to run up here, go ahead and take out this Thor. I don't know if he has enough Zerglings for that, and it does look like he's going to have just enough. MMA, however, pushing across the middle of the map, just decimates that middle base. Zenio going to desperately try to remake that base. His army was sort of in position, but not quite. Zergling's just barely going to be able to clean out that Thor, but not enough to go ahead and take out that base. Trying to reestablish a hatchery, a fifth base up in this 12 o'clock position as well. Probably not going to be able to get that as MMA's army is very, very nearby. Broodlords are caught out explosives once again, but gets a little bit of a break as the ground forces were not too far behind. But what ground forces do remain is very, very little, and it doesn't look like the Baneleys do all blow up on those Marines. However, there are too many Marines left. Broodlords are going to be falling here. Vikings coming in from the backside, going to be taking out the last of the Broodlords, and there is the GG by LiquidZenio, not able to hold on in game number 3. A beautiful matchup by both players here. What an exciting third game. My voice is just like gone because the last 10 minutes have been so freaking intense. The Broodlords multiple times caught out of position underneath those Marines. MMA finally able to get the Vikings on a flank and able to take out the Corruptors and the Broodlords alike, and the Marines had full reign over everything that was left in the sky. Ladies and gentlemen, this game and this series have spoken for themselves. Zenio able to hold his own against MMA. I think alone right there, regardless of not taking a match off of MMA in this best of 5, shows how good Zenio can be. MMA being able to just take out Zenio like that, however, also shows how good MMA is. And there you go, both players have affirmed their manliness in this game. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Coffee Break, and I thank you for joining me here on the CoffeeCast. This has been an incredible series, and I'm so glad I decided to bring this to you guys, because I almost didn't, because I was thinking about taking a nap instead. Way more exciting to get this adrenaline pumping. Thank you for joining me, and this is Coffee Break, signing out.